Saudi Arabia, it lives on a very delicate balance of revolution. So it's in the interest of the globe to keep it at least stable. I mean, it's like one of those necessary evil kind of things for now. The only thing, and deal with it later. It's complex, like I said. I'm asking you guys to make up your own minds about these things. The other problem Iran has is that as Iran ramps up political influence and theological influence throughout the region, and that ramping up with their nuclear program, the problem with Iran and their weaknesses is they don't have refining capabilities. In fact, the refining capabilities, they're the fourth largest exporter of oil in the world, but yet they still have to import 40% of their gasoline. That gives you an idea of the infrastructure there. It's just not there for the things that Iran should be spending money on. They're not. And, rather they're spending it on paying 3,000 Russian scientists to come in and build a nuclear power plant so that they can have nuclear power and possibly a nuclear weapon. It just doesn't make any sense to me. It's as if they're betraying their people. And even the oil ministry that was there under the last prime minister, the last president before this, I can't say that. I can't say his name. I'm sorry. Before him, they got rid of the entire oil ministry that was trying to work on the infrastructure. Now, China is getting ready to give, I think, $100 billion toward Iranian infrastructure. Well, that doesn't do them a whole lot of good right now. I mean, it'll probably take until 2020 before they're even up to par. And by that time, it's quite possible Persia could be dripping its last drops of oil at that point. Iran has heavy production and output for the amount of capacity it would seem geologists think they have, whereas Saudi Arabia could, if Saudi Arabia doubled their oil export, that would be the strongest weapon that they could use against Shia influence in the Middle East. I mean, you can't do that overnight. It's not like you can flick a switch on and go, okay, we're doubling oil production. I mean, it'd probably take at least 5 years for Saudi Arabia to get to the point where they had the infrastructure to double oil production. But if they flooded the market like that, and they could, that could sink Iran. I mean, I think it's 7 straight quarters now Iran has seen a decline in growth, in economic growth, which, is a depression. So, a 5-year period where Saudi Arabia ramps up production and lowers OPEC prices, it could destroy Iran. And that's the concern that everybody has as well. Desperate Iran is not a good Iran. Shias are the group of the sect of Islam that believes in apocalyptic prophecy. They believe the end times will come. A lot of them, including those of very high power in Iran right now, believe the Ayatollah and his group of clerics. It's almost like the caliphate of the old Ottoman Empire. They believe that the 12th Imam was alive and that he will come back, and that when he comes back it will mark the end times. And there's reason to believe they believe he's alive today and ready to come. And then the prophet Isu, I think they say, or either that or Isau, but what most people would know him as, Jesus. When the prophet Jesus comes down, he will decide who goes to heaven and who doesn't, or through Allah. I mean, Allah will give him the power to do so, and that's the end times. And a lot of Iranians believe that those times are near. There are a lot of Iranians that are very modern, very Western, and don't want any parts of that. So, just like in Christianity, there are groups, Shia groups, that believe that they should accelerate the process of the apocalypse. That's kind of frightening. And when you see a group of people that are in power, in political power, and they're an autonomous group in a region, in a country that holds 80 million people, and what they're doing is fastly accelerating offensive weapons rather than fastly accelerating infrastructure and things that could grow the economy, there has to be alarm. You have to as an outsider, objectively go, okay, there are 7 straight quarters of negative growth. Their infrastructure for refining capacity is horrible. They could be spending a lot more money doing those kind of things to raise the economy and therefore the way their people live in better harmony and better money and eat, those kind of crazy things. You'd think that would be the priority of that autonomous group, when their priority is to make, and accelerate to offensive weapons, and the president of Iran has been very clear about that. When you intertwine that mentality, that apocalyptic mentality, with the evidence that we have, that we know about Iran, it has to raise an alarm to folks. It really does. And it's understandable why there are a lot of people in Europe not real happy about Iran right now, and there are a lot of people in the know in Russia that aren't real happy. There's a reason Russia pulled out their scientists. And to be honest with you, I think that even the Chinese, although they have provided money for infrastructure with Iran, are concerned about them as well, and they've been pretty open about that. And the Chinese have been pretty open that rogue regimes in the world aren't something they're real fond of, regardless of how much it may benefit them. They did the same thing with Chavez when Chavez went to China, and Chavez decided he was going to speak for the Chinese government, and the Chinese president said, "You don't speak for us, and anything that comes out of your mouth, we don't agree with." And the Chinese are a very shrewd group, very sharp, and or at least the people that are running China right now are. So there's concern from the entire. There's a reason that there was a unanimous decision to impose sanctions on Iran if they continue to ramp up their nuclear power and their nuclear program. There should be concern. And what my concern is that there are a lot of people here on YouTube going, "It's none of our business, and let them do whatever they want." And you have no idea what you're talking about, to be honest with you. I mean, at this point, it could be the single biggest threat to the world. I know Kim Jong-il, that's a distraction. Kim Jong-il is tightly fucking wound. He's completely surrounded by people that could fucking destroy him, and he knows that. And all the Chinese have to do is turn off the oil once in a while, which they do, and he shuts the fuck up. So, I mean, he's already talking about, allowing some South Korean. He's already talking to South Korea about the seeds of change are happening in North Korea. He's isolated. He's fine. Kim Jong-il is not the problem. Iran could be. Pakistan could be. Those are 2 regions of the world people should be very, very concerned about. And the whole world is concerned about them. But it's not a matter of it's none of our business. If you have a next door neighbor, or even a neighbor down the street that's selling drugs to all the kids in the neighborhood, well, it's none of your business. It is. It's a world community. And an isolationist attitude in this world, in this economy, in this global economy, is impossible. Those days are over, people. And the days are over where, at least in a very strong diplomatic sense, the United States has to show some strength at times. I'm not justifying the war in Iraq in any way. I'm leaving that decision up to you. But the concern about Iran is real. And if you're not concerned about that, well, you need to read a little bit of the history. And as we go on, I'm going to explain to you that history.